Hello and welcome to How Could We, a podcast by Climate KIC where we explore the collaboration we need, the lessons we've learned, and the areas where we see the most impact when it comes to climate action. I'm your host, Anne-Sophie Garrigou, and today we're coming to you live from Paris, where we've just launched the Climate KIC Academy at the Climate Reality Tour. If you're not familiar with the Climate Reality Project training, it's an initiative launched by former US Vice President Al Gore 15 years ago to train people in how to lead in the fight against the climate crisis. This morning we had the privilege of hearing from Al Gore, Anne Hidalgo, Cristina Figueres, Laurence Toubiana, and many other climate leaders. One remark that really resonated with me came from Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris. She said something like, people need to experience the positive impacts of climate action. And that's why she wanted people in the city to experience walking and biking in a greener city. I love this idea of demonstrating the benefits of climate action through tangible everyday experiences. Now, I'm really excited to be joined by Marina Gil Velasco, Climate KIC Academy lead. With Marina, we're going to talk about the kind of leadership that we need today as the world navigates democratic crisis, economic instability, and an escalating climate emergency. We're going to talk about how can we close the green skills gap and empower people to drive real change. Marina and the Climate KIC Academy are at the forefront of this effort, working to equip individuals with the skills, not just technical, but also transversal skills like leadership and collaboration to accelerate climate action. In this episode, we will discuss the power of education, the role of resilience in leadership, and how can we prepare a workforce ready to build a just, beautiful, and resilient future for all. Welcome, Marina, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Anne-Sophie. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
To start, can you introduce us to the Climate KIC Academy? What's the mission and why is closing the green skill gap so urgent?
At Climate KIC, we really use a systemic approach, which means that we try to connect all the elements of the system so that they work together as a whole. So that is what we are trying to do with the Climate KIC Academy, just to bring all of the different work that we do on the ground, working with cities, regions, businesses, and not-for-profits as well, so that we can really have one place where we can connect with all the dots. Why are we doing that? It's because we realize that we really have to scale our impact even more so that we can really support this green transition with the scale and sort of speed that is needed. And so we have been observing through our 15 years experience working with real climate challenges on the ground that there is sort of really ambitious climate goals that the both public and private sector want to achieve, but the workforce working on this and leading this process have a huge skills gap. So on the one hand, sort of the green technical skills are more present and there is like quite a lot of training around, like lots of people doing great things, but through the sort of assessment that we have done in these years, we have seen this is actually not enough. While this is essential, this actually has to be complemented with transversal skills. With transversal skills, we mean leadership approach, leadership mindsets, system thinking, also active collaboration. So when you really make the magic and bring them both together is when we have seen such an improvement in the impact that this has within the professionals.
Thanks. And so this morning we've had Al Gore, who presented many of those solutions that have been put in place to fight the climate breakdown, especially in the past 10 years. And it's quite incredible what's been achieved since the Paris Agreement 10 years ago here. He said, for instance, that it used to take a year to install 1 gigawatt of solar energy, and now it takes about a day. And in 2024, 93% of the new energy generation came from renewables. He also mentioned that in China, half of the car sales are now electric cars, battery prices are declining, demand is increasing. I think he said 36 cities in the world committed to just buy electric buses from now on. And we know at Climate KIC, many cities and regions are pledging to become climate neutral by 2030. But what we've realized, as you said, working with many of the cities and regions, is that this transition is being delayed by this lack of green skills in the workforce. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and why is green upskilling so important? So what have we noticed at Climate KIC and how are we helping governments or cities or individuals? How are we helping the workforce to bridge this gap?
There is these huge climate ambitions at every scale, and both the public and private workforce are really willing to make the change, but sometimes they don't really know where to start. So what we do at Climate KIC, we can divide it into key steps. On the one hand, really try to understand what is their need. So we don't really have a programmatic approach that we just deploy everywhere, but we really work on place-based and challenge-based. So first of all, we really listen, active listening at the challenge that they are going through, and we try to together explore and sort of experiment what is the training or like skills that will be more beneficial for their work. And on the other hand, we also try to not reinvent the wheel and collaborate as much as possible. So that is why we are so happy to be here with the Climate Reality Project team. So what we do is also just to facilitate learning within peers, but also cross collaboration. So we have, as you know, so many projects going on within Europe and internationally, and we have more than 400 partners within our community team. So we just try to connect people who are doing similar stuff and also share not only learnings, but also failures, as we can learn sometimes so much more from that, so that we can somehow support that process, help them optimize their resources, their time, and yes, just connect them.
Today you had a workshop, you and the Director of Learning, Sula Zofoniasdottir, here at the Climate Reality Tour in Paris. And we had more than 250 people, I think, in the room, and you made them work on the mindset traps. Can you please explain a little bit about those mindset traps that are preventing progress sometimes, and how can we overcome them?
We were so impressed by the turn up on our workshop. We were really glad. So what we did is this really practical hands-on exercise where we, first of all, presented things that we all fall into when we don't really realize. An example would be the fact that we assume that we are always right, or most of the times we think that we are right. And it's really difficult for us to take the time to challenge ourselves and our convictions. We were challenging the participants to think about it and try to reflect on how often this happens, not only professionally, but also in your personal life. I find also very interesting because I think I can see myself doing that really regularly, the sort of tendency to agree with others, because it's so uncomfortable to be in disagreement and, challenge what others are saying. So I think something that Sola said yesterday, it's very common, say, let's agree to disagree. You are still trying to find an agreement within the disagreements. What we did was just explain a series of mantras that we fall into and challenge them. So we divided the whole room, which we were a little bit curious to see how it would work, because normally we work with smaller groups to do these activities. And yes, they work in trios, and they actually had really interesting outcome and sort of feedback that they share, where they saw that they sort of reflect that actually they were so surprised, how often they really fall into this 5 example of mantras that we mentioned. Sometimes we think that we need to have such a complicated type of training, and we're really missing the basics and the simple things that we don't really realize how important they are.
And so do you have some tips already to move from those mindset traps? For instance, the rightness, or for instance, this uncomfortability with disagreeing with other. Do you have some tips for people to go past that?
I think something that I would say, based also on my own experience, is try to practice a bit more of sort of deep listening. So just really not jump into conclusions so quickly, or trying to find the solution. I really feel a bit make me nervous when we use the word solution, because I think also there is not just one solution. There are different possibilities. So I would say just taking the time to really listen, understand, trying to also put in the other person's skin, and on the one hand be yourself, and on the other hand just also be empathetic. So just trying to see where they are coming from and challenge yourself. Just take the time to see, okay, I have learned all of these things, I have done all of this practice, but how would it be in this specific situation, and what can I learn from the person I have in front of me?
Thank you. And yes, so we talked a little bit at the beginning about all of the technology solutions, and of course policy is also a key to drive climate action. But yeah, what we're saying here at Climate KIC and with the Climate KIC Academy is the importance of leadership and transversal skills. How do you think is the state of climate leadership today?
I'm overall try to really sort of focus more on the positive than the negative. So I know there are a lot of, things going on right now that can stress us a lot and make us really worried. But I really am so impressed and motivated, for example, when I see all the young leadership movement that is happening all around the world. Like, it really makes me proud of initiative and the sort of proactivity that young people have nowadays, and also to see that we are really making the space for their voices. I really think there is a hope, and that we will, like as Al Gore was saying yesterday, the change is going to happen anyway. So I think we can just try to unite forces and as much as we can try to make it as impactful and sort of quick as possible.
Yeah, and talking about leadership, we've interviewed in the podcast Veena Balakrishnan. She's one of the co-founder of the Young Negotiator Academy, and that's one episode also of the podcast in the season 7. So we'll link that in the podcast show notes. We're talking a lot about democratic instability. There is a lot of misinformation, disinformation. There are global crises. How do these factors, do you think, shape the kind of climate leadership that we need today?
Indeed, that is like really worrying, because I think on the one hand, we are a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of information that we get every day in every type of media. And on the other hand, it's difficult sometimes to understand what is the truth and what is, the fake news. There are a lot of inspiring leaders that we can sort of take as a reference. And when I say leader, or like not just me, but in Climate KIC, a leader, we just think it doesn't have to be like really high level, only like CEOs or mayors. We're looking at every individual that is really willing to make a change. So sometimes I think it's even more helpful to really look also at your own community, how can you make a change, like a little step on making a change, and how important it is to really build that community, have the support of others, so that whatever you do, have a greater impact. I think we have seen a lot of these examples in the work that we do on the ground, and we really believe in bottom-up approach. Still, obviously, it is very important to have great leaders that can guide us through the process, but I think what we try to do at Climate KIC is sort of build a bridge between both sides. So the sort of high level is really aware of what are the real challenges on the ground, and people who are within the communities really trying to do like a positive impact, they can also have the resources and the right links to do so.
It's really interesting. And that makes me think also of what Laurent Soubiana was saying yesterday about the need for collective resistance. Mm-hmm. And I think that was really interesting because, as you say, like there are a lot of people doing a lot of little things, or a lot of people doing things. And we can see it here at the Climate Reality Tour in Paris. We are in table of like 10 people, and each of us are working on climate, working on trying to change things in our organization, in communities, etc. But how do we make this like more systemic? Basically, that's kind of the idea. And I think that's one of the things with the Climate KIC Academy is about those like transversal skills. So it's not just one individual action, but to connect it with others. Can you tell us a little bit more on this like importance of transversal skills, and how can people get better at it, or the importance of it?
With the transversal skills, we are meaning any kind of capacity that really allows you to, on the one hand, collaborate with others. I really like the concept of radical collaboration. Just try to make as many connections as possible, because that will really help you to have a really diverse set of point of view, of challenges, or way to see like a similar problem. With climate leadership, what we are trying to do and inspire is just really people to like support this transition that is happening. So there is no doubt that this is on the way and will continue to evolve. Just give them the right tools for them to be able to scale up what the work that they are doing.
And you talked about radical collaboration, and we have an episode on radical collaboration with Rios Partners that we did a couple of years ago. We'll also add the link in the show notes. If there is one thing that you'd like listeners, whether they're business leaders, policymakers, citizens, funders, to take away from this conversation, how can they engage, for instance, with the Climate KIC Academy?
So we are really open to collaborating any way possible. I think on the one hand, we are really looking for little communities, or bigger one as well, in the private and public sector, businesses that are challenging with how can I actually put in practice this really difficult policy that I have in us to deploy. Just please reach out to us, because as I mentioned earlier, it will be really like a collaborative process where we can co-create together and think about how can we help you to do what you need to do as easier as possible, and also hopefully as quick as possible. On the other hand, we are really open to collaborate with partners, since indeed we already have a series of strategic partners that can be found on our website that we are working with, because we don't want to do this alone. We think that's not the way to go on. So if you think that you look at our website and you think you're really aligned with what we want to do, please reach out, as we would love to have a call with you and see how we can unite forces. And yes, and then if you are an individual and you're thinking, oh, I'm all by my own, and is this also for me? Of course, we don't have an open call right now, but you can register your interest in our website, and as soon as we have available trainings, we will reach out to you so you can join us if you are interested.
So we'll put in the show notes the link to the website on the Climate KIC Academy, the link to the page for the funders and partners, and the form registration for people to register their interest. We come to the last question of the podcast that I've been asking everyone for 3 years now. What would a just, beautiful, and climate resilient future look like for you in one sentence?
For me, it will be the sense of community, the sense of unite, and just positive hope in the future.
Thank you so much, Marina, for joining us on the podcast. It was really nice to have you, and I hope it inspires a lot of people to join us and join the Climate KIC Academy.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie. Lovely to be here.
Thank you all for listening to this new episode of How Could We? This season, we'll be talking about climate leadership in a time of uncertainty. In this episode, we talked about how innovation and policy are fantastic and absolutely necessary, but we also need to invest in people and in creating the right mindset, skills, and resilience to drive change across all sectors. If this conversation resonated with you, please consider exploring the Climate KIC Academy and how you or your organization can be part of closing the green skills gap. Thank you all so much for listening to How Could We? And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with others who care. We'll be back in 2 weeks for another episode recorded here in Paris.